Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk1465. Cryptopunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of PunkCast. Today we've got Punk1465 with 3 Addies, Cigarette, Regular Shades, and Dark Mohawk. He's a builder and founder of ZapperFi, a really useful mobile web app that tracks live on-chain activity that I've used for early signal and alpha. Please welcome Seb to the show. Seb, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Mate, I think we've got a friend in common.
Yes.
So based here in Hong Kong, a good friend of mine, Jessica Fong. So shout out to Jessica. Not to sort of dox her as well, but I think she's okay being doxed. Sounds like you guys go way back.
Oh yeah, really back. I did a internship in China, I'd say maybe 10 years ago. It was in Shenzhen. Well, not Shenzhen. Dongguan, which is pretty close, in Jessica's father's factory. I was there for 3 or 4 months, and yeah, hung out with her a few times in Hong Kong. And so yeah, it's crazy. It's such a small world. Yeah, when you wrote that message, I was like, damn, yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was funny because she messaged me the other day because she knows I'm doing PunkCast, and she just goes, "Oh, hey, have you heard of ZapperFi? Zapper or ZapperFi?" I said, "Oh yeah, actually, I think that's a punk project." And then I think we just connected the dots, and so we sort of reached out on that basis. But it's pretty cool. It is a small world. I guess once you're in the punk community, everybody sort of knows each other as well, which is kind of cool. All right, so I'm assuming your name's Seb, so there's probably not a story behind that. But maybe if you can just kick us off by just giving us a brief introduction to yourself, I guess your background, where you grew up, and what ultimately led you into crypto and Web3.
Yeah, so I'm from Montreal. Living there since forever, and college studied in finance. And during my degree, I kind of quickly realized that I hated finance. It's not something I found particularly enjoyable. I had a few internships that I did, and one of them, that's where it was oh, finance isn't for me. And also that I had this kind of distrust with the industry. And so I was working with an investment fund where they just managed people's portfolio. And my internship supervisor would hunt for the things where he had the highest commissions instead of investing in the best things for his client. And it was oh, this is the thing that everyone does. I was man, this is such a conflict of interest, and apparently this is not the only person doing this. And so, I was kind of this rebellious phase, and I was yeah, I'm not going to work in finance. And so during my internship there, I learned how to code. So that was virtually the only thing I would do. My supervisor didn't know that, but I was just spending my entire days. I was I've not much to do. I don't like this, so might as well turn this into productive time. And so started building websites, web apps, really just getting, the basics. And yeah, right after that, my internship went back to, finish up my degree. And instead of finishing my degree, I was yeah, I'm just leaving. And so started my own startup. It was the classic one in my parents' basement, and did it for about a year, and it just failed. I never launched a product, nothing.
What did you build?
It was.
What was the first thing you built?
So it was a marketplace to connect publishers of magazines with advertisers. So publishers, had magazines that they had difficulty selling ad space for. So it's really a traditional model. And they were struggling to sell that real estate. And so I was building a marketplace so that they can connect with advertisers. So it's kind of AdWords, but for magazines. Yeah, did that for a year and never launched anything, but learned a lot about technology. I think it was a great way to just learn about building stuff. It was a really complex project that kind of just naively went into. And so I was able to learn a ton about design. Just you fail so often that eventually you find new things, ways to build. And yeah, it didn't work. And then my parents were like, oh, you should just finish your degree. And so I was pretty stubborn, but did it anyway. So I finished my degree. And then right after, as soon as I finished my degree, I found a job as a developer in a startup and did that for about a year. The startup got bought by WeWork and worked on another startup. And then in 2017, that's where I discovered Ethereum. And at that point, I was really at that point, I didn't know that there was something else than Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I thought it was just Bitcoin. And so when I learned that there was something else and on top you can build things on top of it and build applications, smart contracts, I was like, oh, yeah, there's real potential here. And yeah, there's a few other startups in there as well. But at my last job before I started Zapper, I was at ShakePay, and it was a Canadian exchange. And that was like the biggest exchange in Canada. While I was there, we were like 4 or 5 employees. So, I mean, I've always been in the startup world. I know a ton about them. I worked in them. I saw the mistakes. I started my own. And while I was there, that's where I started to experiment with DeFi. So this was probably mid 2019. And DeFi at that time, it probably had like 10 protocols, maybe about $10 million in total value locked, like very, very small. I mean, to have $10 million in TVL, like if 1% had $1 million, that was like 10% of all of DeFi. So, I mean, $1 million is a lot, but like relatively speaking, like it shows how small DeFi was at that time. And yeah, I just started investing here and there, playing around with different protocols. And as a kind of side effect of that, I really had difficulty tracking my own portfolio. So just really hard. And I knew that the chain is something that was transparent, that you can pull data from it. And so it's like, yeah, let me just read these smart contracts, pull it in a way that's readable. That's where the first version of Zapper came from. I was hanging out in a bunch of DeFi Discords at the time. And so I knew pretty well like the user base of DeFi, they wanted what they needed. It's still a very small community, but I knew that there's no one that was like reading contracts and pulling data from it and putting it in a readable format. Like that did not exist at that time. And so it was a UI that just aggregated everything, connect your wallet, seemed very magical because you see all the numbers kind of appear instantly. And yeah, that was the MVP. And it's interesting because at the time, I knew it was going to be big because I knew that I was solving like a fundamental problem in decentralized finance. And so if you were like DeFi is the future, well, seeing your balances in DeFi, tracking your portfolio is a fundamental need. People need that. So I knew I was going to ride the DeFi growth wave. I just never expected it to happen that quickly. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the pre-Zapper story.
Yeah. So does that make you a full stack developer? Then you've got skill base in front end, back end, DevOps, the full kit and caboodle, or do you prefer sort of a specific part of development?
I'd say it's a mix of everything. It's a mix of back end, front end, design, and product, because you need to do all of those things in a startup. And so I had to learn how to do all those things equally. But I do have a penchant for more like product design and front end work. Like I really want to be where, my users are.
That's pretty cool. And then so when was that? That was, you said you started in 2019, sort of in that early DeFi phase.
Yep.
Because I think DeFi summer wasn't really mid-year 2020, right?
Yeah, exactly.
2020. That's when that sort of kicked off. I think that's when I got in.
Nice.
Paying about $400 in gas fees just to put something into the Curve protocol.
Yeah, good old days.
Yeah, that's sort of exciting. And so you got in through that sort of route, and then talk to me a little bit more about, I guess, your transition into NFTs, because we'll come back to ZapperFi as well. At what point did you get into NFTs?
So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a transition. It's more like an evolution where while we were building, Zapper in the early days, which was really like a DeFi-focused portfolio tracker, there's kind of like a switch that flipped in my mind. And that came from, I noticed a ton of people were using it kind of as a bit like Facebook in this. They were looking at other accounts. And that became a huge use case of looking what others had. And this is not something that's usual in finance. It's not something that's possible before. If you're using like mint.com or whatever, like portfolio tracking tool, you can't like look at what others have, right? It's only a single player view. And at that moment, I kind of realized, okay, this is probably a very, like just to view this as a portfolio tracker is too narrow-minded, like for this space, because people are using it to view other accounts. And so the kind of mindset switch that happened was, we're not building a portfolio tracker, we're building an account profile. And it happens that we just started servicing the finance part of your account profile. We haven't surfaced the other parts yet, but you know, what you invest in, the protocols you're a part of are a part of your identity. People look at other accounts to know that. So it is, you know, a part of your identity. Just so happens we just surfaced that part first. And so once that switch happened, it became very natural for us to add DAOs, you know, memberships, and show your NFTs that you're a part of. Because all those things form, you know, kind of your identity. These are assets you own. And then another thing is, I always found it very weird that we create categories for things, or sometimes we force categories because the chain doesn't care if something is DeFi. DeFi does not, it's not written in the smart contract that a thing is DeFi. Like these are all assets. They're assets that have different properties that can be used for different things. And so with like that being said, there's often weird things that sit, like a lot of DeFi summer was not really finance. It was more like a game in a way where you stake something or you stake the food coin to, you know, to earn something else. It's not really finance. And same thing, like there's NFTs that can represent financial assets. Uniswap V3 is an NFT that represents a position. And so like there's a lot of things that kind of sit on the overlap, like these categories, you know, and also the space is super composable. So you can take an NFT and now put it as collateral and borrow against it. So it's a mix of, if we just surface your portfolio tracker and we don't surface NFTs, well, there's a big part of your position that's kind of missing. Like how much is that NFT worth or what is it? And so it, you know, all of that, it kind of just became very natural for us to start investing in other areas. And, you know, we kind of position ourselves long-term to be, you know, we want to be a Ether scan for everyone. Like we want to build a retail block explorer. You know, nobody starts a startup and it's like, first thing, let's figure out our mission. You know, it's like, what's the problem? You're just trying to figure out what exactly you're solving. And that's what happened with us. Like the initial problem was the DeFi portfolio tracker. But then you're like, well, what really we're doing is we're making the chain more readable. And that's where kind of our mission started from too, is to making blockchain readable for everyone. And so it becomes more natural to see like these, you know, if you're navigating the product maze, like to see what things you can do in the future when, you know, you kind of built this foundation.
It sounds like you've gone through a bit of an evolution of ZapperFi from being a portfolio tracker to something a little bit more now. Like if you were to summarize, you know, what's the key problem that you think ZapperFi sort of solves? Because I think it solves multiple sort of things in my mind, right?
So the number one problem is the chain is not readable to, I'd say, most people in the space. And so if it's not readable, you can't really use it properly. Because where are you consuming information to make actions on chain? Are you using Twitter? Twitter might not show you the right information. It might be highly biased, might be filtered. You know, if you're trying to find opportunities using a source that's far away from the chain, it might be tampered with. It might be not true. And so people don't really read the chain right now. They use it. And to me, that's the number one problem that exists. But the transparent part of blockchains is honestly one of the most important properties that it has.
No, it's super cool because I think you're right. Up until meme coin season came out again, I probably was just more, you know, using the chain. But I think meme coin season's coming up. I'm like wanting to know which wallets are got the biggest bags in which coins. If they start dumping, it's a signal for me to start exiting. or, triangulating around a group of people that I trust, tracking their wallets. What are they all buying? I think it's a signal for me to go and do those things as well. So from that perspective, 100% super useful. But I think you started talking something a little bit more around identity as well, which I could sort of see it flowing into, which is super fascinating as well, right? Because you start triangulating the on-chain data, the things that they own, and they start signaling something about that person as well, which could be super useful for businesses and brands and to do a whole bunch of things as well, right? So I think that's probably why I was digging a little bit on the problem that you were trying to solve.
Yeah, well, there's absolutely that. And I think like there's a flipping that happened. And I think it was probably accelerated with NFTs is that there's people that have large audiences, not because of the content they post, but because of their on-chain identity. Say, for example, Dingaling. Dingaling probably doesn't have 100K followers on Twitter because of the content. He has that amount of followers because he is an NFT whale. And people are interested because of, he can move markets, move floor prices and stuff like that. And so the basis of his reputation and audience sprouted from the chain versus the other way around. And I think that's going to happen more and more. As we surface the chain better and better, people will start following people or basing someone's identity from the chain itself versus the other way around. It's not like someone has, and you see it with meme coins, so many problems arise from someone that built an audience of like 500K followers on Twitter, says, oh, I built this meme coin, buy it, and then instantly dumps it. Yeah. The reputation of the person was built through their content, not necessarily what happened on chain. Because if you were looking at on chain what that person did, they probably just dumped stuff and you wouldn't trust. It's a very different person.
Yeah.
One is the illusion and one is the actual person.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a major flipping that'll happen. And I think something too, as I was thinking, a lot about is, when Ethereum initially launched, it was only, 0x addresses. And how can people with just 0x addresses interact? How can I know that I'm sending, money to the right person? The only way you can do that is by taking off-chain information. So I DM you, you give me your address, you verify it. And so that's how I know that's your identity. But with time, for us to, we know it's not like fully decentralized if we're using off-chain sources to be able to conduct business between each other. And so with time, we're migrating more and more parts of our identity and our reputation to the chain so that we can conduct business in a trustless way without relying on messaging you, like, because now I can verify that someone has this punk and this ENS and stuff like that. I'm able to conduct business with that person directly on chain without leveraging off-chain information. And we're still in the very early days of that. But to me, you can clearly see the trend long-term where identity really sprouts from the chain itself versus the other way around.
It's really exciting to hear people like you talk like this too. I guess, the volatility in the markets at the moment with, crypto and NFTs sort of makes you wondering whether or not we've got a future. But I think just listening to you, I feel a little bit more optimistic that we've got something to look forward to. So it's really cool what you're sort of building with ZapperFi, man. And I think for you then, like, and ZapperFi, like, what does success look like in the next few years? Like, what are your sort of ambitions? Like, where do you want to take it next?
Well, for us, it's like, how we answered the question of like, have we made the chain readable to everyone? And everyone could be many things, but honestly, you say everyone is like, we're talking about like the world, like want as much people as we can to be able to read the chain. Because we think, there's a lot of like things we're thinking like non-obvious things, to progress the space. And to us, one of them that, is obvious to Zapper that might not be obvious to others is, instead of just hiding that you're using crypto, why not just make it more front and center? Like, why not just make the chain way more readable, easy to digest, and so people can live closer to it and start migrating. Like yesterday, I made a tweet, like an analogy to Facebook, and I was saying Ethereum is a social network. accounts. There's accounts and we can transact, and it evolves a lot like a network. But one of the problems is it's not a network that's very readable. And so you can imagine like if Facebook in the early days was only readable by very technical people, how much the growth of Facebook would have been stunted. And so that's one of the big barriers is like a lot of people are focused on the right in these new assets, but like how can we make so that those things are actually readable and people can learn and see what the hell's happening. And that's a gap that we want to fill that I think will really help push towards more adoption.
Yeah, that's cool. And so how are you thinking through multi-chain? Are you mostly focusing on ETH at the moment? Are you looking to roll this out for multiple chains? EVM mostly, and then others?
Yeah. Right now we're very focused on EVM just because like we can't do everything. We're very open to pick, start building on other chains, but we're really big believers in the EVM ecosystem. We think it has really strong network effects. I think it just even got more solidified in this bear market. But Ethereum has only existed for 8 years. That's like a blimp in the history of technology. So we're always open, and flexible.
Oh, I mean, just an EVM alone. I mean, you've got so much already, right? You got Avalanche, BNB. You got the L2s that are coming. It's huge, and even ETH alone is just already so much there. It's a rich data there. To be interesting to sort of what you pull out of it. Oh, that's cool.
Absolutely.
And what's your team like? Are you a lone ranger, or you've got a bit of an A team with ZapperFi?
So we're about 23. Most of the team is in Montreal. We're a very like engineering heavy team with it's like 85% of the entire team is just engineers. Like you're very product and tech focused. Yeah. A lot of them work for companies like Shopify, Facebook, Google.
And how would you think about monetization as well? Like how does ZapperFi sort of monetize?
Yeah, there's a few avenues, two of them which are already in place. So the first two is fees on transactions. So we currently have a fee on swaps and bridging. The value is really just in the convenience. You don't have to leave. You can do everything from Zapper. And the other one is with our API. So we have a few enterprise API customers that need highly interpreted on-chain data. These are often like consumer apps. It might be like a fund. There's a ton of APIs for like raw and literal on-chain data, like as it is, but there's not that many for interpreted and human readable data. And so that's a part of our offering. And then the third one that we're currently exploring is subscription based. So have like a Zapper Pro that is basically like our feature set, but on steroids.
Maybe like a Nansen or something like that.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The delicate balance is like, you don't want to, like if our goal is to make the chain readable to everyone, there's the word everyone. So it's not like we can make the chain readable to only people that pay. So there's that delicate balance that, we still want to maintain.
Nice. And where are you with, I guess, fundraising and everything else? Like what's the ultimate sort of end goal? Would you drop tokens for all the users, or you want to list or go private? Like what's your sort of end goal?
I don't know. I want to see how far I can bring this. That's like the first thing. Anything else related to like, if it's a token, if it's a sale, it's kind of secondary and not something that I've been like proactively thinking about.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice. Well, mate, looking forward to what comes next for ZapperFi, man. I'll be using it a little bit more as this meme season sort of continues.
Or not, we'll see.
Exactly. So maybe going back to, I guess, your NFT journey, you sort of said it was a natural sort of transition. What was your first NFT that you bought? Do you remember?
It was maybe my Punk. I knew I bought NFT. Oh no, I don't think it was my Punk. Because like I collected NFTs. I don't think I'd say like it was buying. It's like, I know like in DeFi Summer Readable was, getting good traction. I might have bought stuff there, but like the first one that I actually remember was a wizard of Forgotten Runes. That was, I think, in the summer of 2021, like maybe 2 months before the crazy, just run. It's completely insane. And then quickly after I got my punk. They're pretty close succession.
So talk to us about your punk journey then. So you were obviously a ETH, DeFi summer builder. What was it about punks that sort of got you interested and ultimately buying one?
So punks have an interesting story for me. A lot of people in discords in mid 2019 had punks as avatars just in the Discord. So I knew what they were pretty early on, and I remember just wanting one at that point. And then I went to Cryptopunks marketplace, and damn, they're one ETH. What the hell? And never that's way too much. And so I just I never bought one. That ETH was maybe $100. Maybe it was even less than money. It was ridiculous. But at the time, I don't know. I thought it was really expensive.
So when you were talking about most of the people in the Discords had punks, what kind of Discords were they?
I was Synthetics Discord. I know that there's quite a few punks in there, and they had them as their avatar. They had built their identity, and so that's something I thought was really interesting. Is it really stuck out from the bunch? Because in Discord, a lot of people have random avatars, but when you see one person, and you're like, oh, this is just a random avatar. But then you see another one with the same one, and then the other one, and so there's kind of this network effect early on of oh, I recognize it. Okay, what is this? And then I became really curious about it, and then read and then learned about these NFTs and stuff like that. So I think there's small punk community that built up from the Synthetics Discord, kind of like that, because it wasn't a super big community either.
Yeah. And were those guys relatively credible that you were trying to get a little bit of signal from, trusted sort of people in the community?
Oh, definitely. They're always pretty smart, I'd say.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that sort of inspired you to take a look at punks a little bit further.
Yeah. I mean, if they're just, shouting garbage, I probably wouldn't have paid much attention to it.
Which feels like the market at the moment.
Yeah. And so after that was maybe, I had started Zapper, and then we're building an About Us page. And this was, I think, in 2020, maybe end of 2020. And I was let's buy a punk for everyone at Zapper to build our About Us page, and it'll be the Zapper avatar. And so I went back to Cryptopunks marketplace, and they were a bit higher, not that much higher than the year ago or 6 months or 9 months before. I was oh, this is too expensive. No, I'm not buying one. And so my decision to buy punks, so the punk that I currently have, there's a bit of coping involved. Okay, I need one. This is I'm not gonna. I need to pull the trigger. I said no too many times, and I really like them. And it's also when I start to really understand more NFTs and their value, and that Zapper, started supporting them. And so yeah, it's I need one, and I really resonate with the punk culture as well.
So maybe talk a little bit about your selection process. When you said coping, when was this that you bought the punk, and how were you thinking through specific traits? I mean, your one's really cool. I mean, he's got the cigarette trait too, which I love. But talk to us about that selection sort of process.
Yeah, so the selection process was simple. I was these are Cryptopunks. I want the most punk one as possible. So mohawk, the sunglasses, and the cigarette. I saw it. I was yeah, this is a punk. So yeah, that's the one I picked.
Yeah. And when did you pick him up? So you picked him up August in 2021.
Yeah. I think the floor was around 30 something, and I picked it off I think maybe 10 ETH above floors because I really liked it.
Yeah. No, he's super clean, and definitely signals punk vibes for sure. And I think that's probably similar to why I chose. I think the cigarette just really hits home. That this is
really
I
love the cigarette. I don't smoke, but I smoke in the metaverse.
That's cool. And so you mentioned you really vibe with the punk culture. What does sort of punk culture mean to you?
Yeah, it was kind of this tech counterculture. And it's interesting because it can mean a lot of things and something different for everyone, which I think is like, that's what, to me, it's like, it's art because we can all associate something different to punks. And that's an important thing. But like, to me, you know, there's this, Silicon Valley clean part of tech that I've never really liked. Like the whole SaaS, stuff I found was super boring, not exciting. And so like all these clean, like Stripe landing page looking websites, like everything looks similar, talking the same language, a lot of fluff words around like, let's revolutionize or like disrupt this thing. And to me, like punks represented like the counterculture of that. And I've never really fit in like the clean cut Silicon Valley mold of tech. I was always like, never thought it was me. And so it's fun to like be able to anchor yourself to a different part of tech that, I didn't know it really existed, or like there's other people like me. And that's like, I saw a lot of that in crypto, like a lot of this like tech counterculture, which I thought was really interesting. And I saw a lot with NFTs, like a lot of NFTs kind of express that.
Yeah. I think you've hit it nicely on the head. I mean, the way that you're sort of describing that clean look, it feels contrived, it feels fake,
Yeah.
and almost
Yeah.
borderline cringe. Whereas
Exactly.
now you're like rocking a punk. It's just like, it's counterculture. It's just cool. Like if you know kind of thing. And now that you're sort of mentioning it too, like, when Web3 companies are coming out and they're posting stuff about, where, latest Web3 product, metaverse gaming, whatever it is, and then you go to their team and they've actually got their own profile pictures up. Like, I can't take them seriously. I'm like going, if you got a punk or something like that, then I think it really gives you a lot of legitimacy in the space in some ways. And I'm not sort of saying that in a biased way. I think it's got some of those deep embedded roots around, that counterculture that you sort of speak of, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and it's amassed such a like good community, which is, I find it always interesting because you have this NFT that people buy, and somehow like there's still like part of the community that's pretty consistent across the board, and I can't like speak of that to like all the NFT projects. Some with really good brands are able to like do it properly, but even punks that don't really have centralized direction are able to build like this kind of community that kind of resonates in similar ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, if you were to look across, I guess the punk community, do you have like a favorite punk that comes to mind, or punks?
I really like I forget his punk number, the founder of Fire. I had some really good conversations with him in Miami. There's like a punk meetup, and we're very
Fire,
like,
Fire is in the blockchain,
the
or
no Fire, sorry, the Chrome plugin.
okay. You might have to send me his Twitter handle. I'm not sure I'm familiar with him. So he's a punk, is he?
Yep. Yeah, you should check out that product. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's cool. And if money wasn't an issue, what would be your dream punk, do you think?
Really good question. I'm tempted to like have the easy answer and like be alien punk, but I don't think like that's the one that I kind of would go first. I don't know why, but I have this penchant for like dead NFTs, like just zombies or like skulls and stuff like that. And I don't know why. There's something about them that just resonates. So like, I think like probably be a zombie punk. It has a cigarette. I think hoodies might be a controversial opinion, but I think they're overrated. I can understand why they're like, they're so like, they're liked and stuff like that. But I want to see more of the face. And so definitely a cigarette. I know about the head trade. Just like a hat.
Zombies are cool. I think the zombie with the 3D, I think, because the red and the blue and the green just really, really, really pops. That'd be pretty cool. Cool. And then in terms of going back to a little bit about punk culture, how do you feel about V1 punks in general?
I think they're an interesting part of history. I think a lot of people have kind of tried to make them more like canon, which is interesting, like in the sense that like the real, like the true original. But like at the end of the day, it's like it's what people believe is the, the original to be the original, regardless of if one was before the other. It's like the social capital that's around something that's really important. But I still think they're cool. I probably won't get one because I get everything from owning a regular punk. I don't know. Like I might get one eventually if it just pumps like crazy and I have FOMO. But
like everything else.
Yeah. But I definitely I can appreciate them for sure. Like they're a part of like history and part of like they're part of like punk culture in a way.
Yeah, for sure. What about your take on BTC punks and ordinals in general?
I think it's generally pretty bullish on punks. I think it's very bullish because the first thing you see on a new chain, NFTs, will be a punk derivative. It's like the attention or like punks of one, like there's the first thing that people think about in another chain. And I think like that value flows back to punks, whether that's like indirectly in the future or whatever. Like to me, that's like the fact I like to stick to because, blockchains are, people can do whatever they want. They can put anything on them. There's going to be BTC punks. There's going to be punks of all sorts, and people are doing it because the Cryptopunks have such a command such a like lead in terms of, just the attention. Like people view them as like the grail of PFPs and NFTs. They're the most recognizable NFT out there. And then I think like a lot of people will be like, oh, this is bad, but I kind of view it in a good way. Like I think long term it's better because it just it brings more attention. Like people know that, what the original punks are.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny you say that because I guess it is true, right? As soon as there's a new chain that's just opened up, I mean, the first NFT collection would generally be a punk collection, like Binance Punks,
RB
Solana
punks,
Punks,
Opti punks,
yeah, Opti Punks, RB Punks, which is kind of funny. Yeah, so and I probably agree with you that they probably do accrue value back to punks, just keeping us forefront of attention, right? The more of them sort of pop out, but it can get a little bit annoying when you don't know whether or not they're really a punk and they're trying to hit you up. So some of them might be a little bit grifty, but part of the game, I guess. And how do you feel about, I guess, the Yuga acquisition of the Punks IP?
I think generally it's pretty good. I think initially I'd say mildly concerned. Not that I was like concerned, but Yuga had a track record of like very utility based NFTs, and Punk's value never was about utility. It's more about like cultural significance. So it was like, oh, what are they going to do with this? And I was in Miami, and it was there was a punk unveiling at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Miami, and I was there, and I was next to I think the person in charge at Yuga taking care of the Punk's IP. Noah, I think, yeah, Noah, and I found he was doing such a good job of like promoting and talking about like the cultural relevance of punks. And he was talking to like the people that were there that he was talking to were like maybe 40, 50 and like traditional art lovers, and he was talking to them and talking about like the significance of punks. And so that gave me a lot of confidence in Yuga, because to me it's like they don't view this as a utility play or anything. Like they're really here, they understand what punks are, what they represent, and they're doing a lot of education. They put them in museums to kind of put forward, that this is like a culturally significant piece. And more people are seeing them in like the real world, and people ask questions and they're like, oh, what are these things? And I want them to see the important cultural aspect instead of like the just speculative baggage or stuff about you'd see about NFTs if you do a quick YouTube search or anything, like those terrible videos about them and stuff like that. Like, so I think like doing that work is really important, and it gave me a lot of confidence in Yuga having them. The fact that they haven't really done anything with the NFTs is good. And so, yeah, I think it's been a good thing so far.
It's nice. I think Noah's been a really good addition as well in terms of what he's been able to sort of bring, especially with I guess his background and knowledge at some of the auction houses there. So you were at the Miami opening of that CryptoPunk piece. Like, did they have much of a speech or a ceremony or anything like that? What was that like?
No, it wasn't really a speech. It was pretty like, or I mean, I wasn't there for the entire evening, um, but it was just cool to see like, a lot of like traditional like art lovers like asking questions about it, being like very curious and open minded. And although like pretty anecdotal, like I think we underappreciate like a lot of like the traditional art community, and you know they're often very counter whatever like mainstream things, because if you just think about contemporary art, it's the most like the thing that mainstream think is the most dumb, and they see value in it. And so that's something I find really interesting, that struck me, because I'm like, actually, like, people in real life don't all think the same thing about it. These are a lot of people that are very open-minded of them, and that's how like adoption kind of gets going. And yeah, I thought it was like so interesting to see someone I wouldn't associate with NFTs. Like, there was this lady, she's probably like in her mid-50s or like 60s, and she was asking really, really good questions, about punks. And I was like, yeah, so this was like kind of bullish in the sense that, oh, this thing can escape the tech nerd community that we currently have. Like, I do see this like kind of evolving from that, because it can be appreciated from others. And this is not just only punks, but like NFTs in general. So that kind of helped me kind of realize that. But in the sense, like, there weren't like really any like speeches or anything. It was really just this casual setting for people to just talk. And
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll have to go and visit there. The one in Miami was the one located right next to the Warhol piece, right? Was it the?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's that one. The piece is a really cool one, mate. So talking about art, and I've just had a quick look at your gallery, mate. You've got quite the collection. You got Punk, Apes, Ripcash, Pinda Van Armen, some really beautiful pieces in here. Rainstro as well. So like, you know, what sort of pieces do you like collecting? Like what's your collecting style? Would you say?
It's a good question. Like, I'd say one thing that I really enjoy collecting is on-chain art. So a thing that's like 100% on-chain, because I think like it's a underappreciated part of NFTs is like, there's people that make the effort that will pay an insane amount of gas just so that their art piece can live 100% on Ethereum, like, and not depend on IPFS or anything else. It's just like immutable. It's going to be there as long as Ethereum. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And Rip Cash in particular is, I'd say, like top 3 favorite artists, just because of like the social commentary. So it's something like I do like enjoy like learning more about the story behind pieces, because obviously there's visually what it looks like, but that's only a part of it. Like with Rip Cash, I think it's so interesting, like the entire thinking that goes behind his pieces, and it went way deeper than I thought. So the main like aspect to his collections is really like the surveillance camera, and that's something you'll see consistently across the pieces. And one big thing that is talked about in his pieces is, or the commentary is, around identity and what it means to live in the digital age. And really interesting part of identity is, in a transparent world, like a blockchain that you can see everything, what does that also mean from the aspect of identity? And one of the things he talked about is, I'm putting my camera on chain. And so in a way, it's like representing the fact that anyone can look at what's happening on chain and looking at all the transactions that are happening. And it's also a big part is the the duality of like transparency versus privacy. A lot of his works kind of, explore that duality of like transparency. What does it mean for privacy and privacy? Because there's a truth that we haven't fully confronted yet with blockchains is the fact that they're transparent, that you can see everything. And not everyone fully realize that fact because there's people that are getting caught doing bad things. But also like people aren't realizing it because, they're making decisions about their identity without knowing, without fully realizing that anyone can know exactly what they're doing. Like if everyone knew that the blockchain was transparent, that everyone can see what you're doing, it would probably change your behavior or change the way you build up your identity. So a lot of his work kind of explores that. And there's obviously like the whole Web2 critique part on like surveillance and there being more and more surveillance. And then one part too that I really, really like about his work is about like digital landscapes. So in traditional art, like landscapes help set up the mood. So you have like a subject and you have like the environment that's around, whether it's like a field or like the ocean, and it helps sets up a mood. But there's no real, like when you think about like a digital landscape or a landscape, like a blockchain landscape, what does that look like? How do we express a feeling of like being in the digital world? You can't put a notion because those things aren't like part of the environment. So he uses a lot of like windows and, things that you'd see when, using a computer operating system, because that's like our digital landscape. There's just a bunch of windows open, like your mouse and like your navigation screen. So that's a part of this work too, because he uses that as a way to like build up like this digital landscape. So it's like as you're using this digital landscape, you have this camera that's like looking at you. So it's very deep, and I also didn't like do it fully justice, probably like the 10% of it, and so like there's so much about his work that I think will live, because we're in a unique spot where privacy and transparency are becoming more and more of like this essential issue with humanity. And I think like his art just represents this moment in time that I think will become very, very important in the future, as just thinking back about this kind of, turning point in human history.
No, I think you did him really, really great justice, man. I think I've learned a lot just in that moment you're talking about his work. So I'll have to take a bit of a deeper dive into his stuff. It's actually really cool. So, man, a bit of a lesson there. And I know I sort of see you've got some clear silvers in there as well, which is kind of cool. Muffers, man, you've got everything, and you've got some art blocks pieces as well.
Yep.
So, really, really beautiful collection. And like
Thank you.
For you now, like, are you sort of net collecting, or you just holding, you buying or selling? Like, what's your sort of position at the moment?
Always collecting.
Okay. Always collecting.
Never stop. My problem is I spend too much ETH. Every time I have ETH, I just spend it. It's really becoming an issue because I also want ETH as well, but somehow I just spend it on art, which I think is fine as well.
I think art's. I feel better spending ETH on art, even if it goes down in value, as opposed to meme coins. These meme coins are just burnt through my ETH in a different way. Right. And so if you look back at your NFT career to date, what would be your biggest win or loss that's worth mentioning?
A good question. I think biggest win. I've had a few of them, but I think like Azuki's probably be among the top ones. Was in like pretty early. I think like my biggest one with the Azuki's is, so I think I had like around 10 of them, and they did the beans airdrop. They'd get 2 for every Azuki that you had. And so I got 20 beans at that airdrop. And in those 20, I got the number 1 bean, like the rarest bean, which is the only, as no trade, it's a spirit bean. And so I got super lucky. And I think that's probably my biggest win in NFTs is being able to get this 1 of 1 bean just through an airdrop.
That's pretty cool.
And it's funny how I realized it, because the airdrop happened and be getting like ridiculous offers instantly. And I looked at it, I was like, what the hell is going on?
What are they worth now?
Beans?
The spirit one that you pulled.
I don't know. Like I think like number 6 or 7 in rarity got sold for like 25 ETH, around that range recently. So I think it'd be like probably 30, 35. It's the rarest one.
It's crazy.
So yeah. But at the time I was getting offers like 60, 70 ETH for the beans. And I didn't know it was the rarest one yet. So I was like, okay, I need to check this out. And then I went to, forgot the website at the time for like rarity, and it was there, number 1. It's just a mind blown moment. And my worst trades, I had a few. I think like Cool Cats, I went way too hard. Cool Cats, I still like them, but like, man, I bought the absolute Pico top.
They're sort of recovering now, aren't they? They've got like a new team and they're doing some stuff.
Yeah, I love Klon. It's his life's work, and I'm bullish on people. I'm not too worried about the future. It's just a mild pain buying at the absolute top.
Yeah, no, that's cool, mate. So Seb, that's sort of last series of the questions that I normally ask punks, but this is a really fun conversation to sort of unpack your punk story and listen to your journey into ZapperFi and where you sort of go next. But just maybe one last question before we go. If you could pass on a message to the next owner of your Punk1465, what would you like to say to them?
That is not something I've ever thought about. I assume that I'd always have this punk. Wow, this is such a good question. I want to answer it properly. Something that resonates more with like helping like tech people, probably around that, like, tech counterculture and, thinking differently and not think about like, not be too much conform. It's okay to like be weird. So like something around that. I don't know what organizations will look in the future, but that's how I think of like, leveraging its history, like assuming that, Zapper becomes hyper successful and it's something I hold forever. That's probably like how I want it to be like used. So probably like donate it to a cause I care about.
Super cool. I think they'll be very lucky and honored to have your punk one day, mate. And I guess any last final closing comments on your side, and what's the best way for people to, I guess, find you? And
yeah, so you can play around with Zapper at zapper.xyz. So following different accounts, you can see what they're up to on chain. You can track your own portfolio, whether that's the NFTs you own, the DeFi assets and protocols you're a part of, DAO memberships, explore other accounts as well. And if you have any feedback, you can follow me as well at SebOddet26. My DMs are always open, so feel free to reach out. And yeah, this was really fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for your time, Seb. I know you must be super busy, but if you ever visit this side of the world again, like Hong Kong, yes, we'll get Jess and we'll go hit the town.
Oh, I'd be super down. Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thank you so much again. And guys, that wraps up another episode of PunkCast for the week. And we'll be back next week with another awesome punk. Bye for now.